Now here's your host, Lloyd Shoemaker, with Coach Dahl.
Welcome to the Coach's Show. I'm Lloyd Shoemaker, your host, and sitting beside me is the star of the show. This year's girls basketball coach, head basketball coach, is Coach John Dolph. John, welcome to the show. It's your show, buddy, so what do you want to talk about?
You lead it, whatever.
All right, we'll do that way. You just took over as the head coach for the girls basketball team at Piqua High School. Prior to that, you coached the freshman boys last year. You had a pretty successful record. What were you?
17-3.
17-3.
Yep.
It was just kind of neat to watch you guys play because they were very enthusiastic playing for you as a coach last year in boys basketball. Prior to that, give us a little history on your coaching experience. You're a Piqua High School graduate, first of all.
Correct.
You were a star athlete in football. The miracle man out there could run the 100 yards in -4 seconds or something. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
You played wide receiver.
Yep.
Yep. For a short guy, you was a wide receiver.
Correct.
But you could fly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've also done some coaching in track, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And now you're helping with the football program. Tell us a little bit about your coaching experience.
So I started here 3 years ago, and I was the junior high coach for 7th grade. So I coached receivers and DBs. And then after a year of that, I went on to go to the varsity, where I now coach DBs. So I've been doing that for the last 2 years. And then my first year when I coached, I was the 7th grade boys coach, and we were average. Kind of introducing some new things and some things that we're trying to work on. So it took a while. It's kind of a shorter season with the junior high. Then last year I coached the freshman boys, and we were able to have some success.
Did you bring a lot of those kids up in the junior high onto that freshman team?
No, there was a gap in between. The freshman team now is the group that I coached.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So then, but you were successful. Only 3 losses last year as a frashman coach, first year.
Correct. Yeah. Had some good athletes. That helps.
Yeah, it does help.
That helps a lot.
And then Coach Grasso was probably sorry to see you leave the freshman thing, but you had an opportunity to become a head coach, and that's kind of what you wanted to do, right?
Absolutely. I had to jump at it. I didn't think it would come this early, but opportunity presented itself, and I grabbed it.
Well, sometimes you got to watch what you wish for, John.
That's true. That's true.
But you'll be. I saw your scrimmage here the other night. You had a 3-way scrimmage with Dunbar and Bradford.
Bradford, correct? Yep.
What did you think about your scrimmage? How'd it go?
It's a process right now. We're trying to build, we're trying to learn some things. The style is a little bit different than what, I guess the style and the tempo is a little bit different than what they're used to in the past. So we're just trying to work through the process of that. And it's going to be a process. I mean, the guys last year that I had, we kind of implemented some of the same things, very similar. And it took them a while to kind of pick up on it. So our second game last year, we got blown out by 30 points against Butler. And then we played them again the second time, and we turned around and beat them by 20.
Good.
So it just takes a while. It's a process. And then once they understand and once they pick it up, we should be all right.
On the girls' team this year, looking at the roster that you sent me and looking at last year's roster, you got 7 girls came back off of that team last year.
Yeah.
I only saw one that I noticed was missing. But the record for the girls basketball team, for some reason, they have not been able to have success. And by success, I mean winning more games than you're losing each year. You go back to 2000, and I think it was 2013. They were 0-21. Was that correct? No, it was 2000. 2000. They were 0-21, and then last year, 7-16. And there hasn't been a winning season in there at all. I think the most wins they've ever had is 7, and they've had that a couple of times.
Yeah.
Based on what you've seen, have you gone back and looked at any films or anything of your previous to see if you could pick on one particular thing where it's just not coming together?
Yeah, I would say looking at past films, one of our well, there's 2 weak links. There's not being able to rebound, and there's just sheer aggression, being more physical than the other team. I think I I hope that we're going to do both of those things really well this year, and then that will help us maybe get a few more games, maybe get to that 10 spot would be ideal. But we're going to, take it one game at a time, and I can't really speak too much to what's happened in the past. I know, like I said, it's a little different style that I'm going to bring. But it's going to be a process. So
now, when you and I talked early after it was announced that you were going to be the head coach, one of the things that you mentioned to me was, I said to you, what are you going to do different? You said, well, weight room.
Yep.
That was the first thing out of your mouth, was the weight room. Are they hitting the weights?
Yeah.
They getting stronger?
Yeah. Now the in-season program is a little bit different than an off-season program. Our off-season program is a little more intense. Obviously in season you don't want to wear them out. We're focusing a lot on our practices, and a lot of the time is spent on the court, but we are getting a couple days in a week, and that will continue through the whole season. So that's what I'm talking about, part of being more physical. Some of that comes with just being stronger than your opponent. And so that's one advantage that we're trying to gain.
One of the disadvantages I think that I've noticed over the years with Piqua girls basketball is the lack of height. We don't have the big girls like they have in Shelby County.
No.
We just need to do a better job recruiting up there, John. You need to get up to Oktoberfest with some candy or something.
Yeah.
Get some of those girls come down here. But I noticed that on this year's team you've got a couple of 5'11s.
Yeah.
You got one 5'10 freshman.
Yeah.
The two 5'11. Who are the 5'11 girls?
We have Shrub, who's 5'11", and then we have Yeomans, who's she's about 5'11".
Yeoman's a senior this year, is that right?
She's a junior.
Junior,
yep.
And Shrub is
a freshman.
Freshman.
Yeah. So that's, height is always nice, but sometimes you just have to do the small things, be aggressive, be physical. Like I said, with boxing out, you just have to do it. You got to seal them out and clear the paint, and then go get the rebound.
Well, I know I was watching you as much as I was watching the game, the scrimmages the other night, and you did a lot of this on top of your head. That must be your frustration move. If you had hair, you could run your fingers through your hair like Coach Meyer does. But I noticed rebounding. You talked about the rebounding. There wasn't a whole lot of rebounding. Correct. On the defensive or the offensive board for you guys.
Correct.
You were getting boxed out a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot of one shots, and that was it for us on the offense end. And then defensively, it seemed like 3 or 4 opportunities that they were getting, which you're not going to win a lot of games if you don't box out.
Well, the good thing about that is that if the other team was a good shooter, they wouldn't have had 3 or 4 opportunities.
That's true.
Because they were all right underneath the basket, and they kept playing volleyball with it.
Correct.
Up there.
Yep.
Now, I made a comment to you after the game that I thought it seemed like your girls were getting to the point where they're getting out of control. They were running downhill all the time, and you said, well, we want to do up and down the floor.
Yep.
And I made the comment to you, well, you get into a 6-quarter game, I think you got a good chance of winning it, because your girls played so much better in the last 2 quarters.
Yeah.
What did you talk to them about between those last 2 quarters?
We just doing our job, playing within yourself. There was sometimes we get a little excited, and I've told them that sometimes just playing fast doesn't mean that you are having to go 100 miles an hour. We want the ball to move fast, so you got to catch the ball, control the ball, and then move the ball. And that's kind of how our offense works, and that's how it'll be effective. But if their bodies are going 800 miles an hour and they don't have control of the ball, and that's what you witnessed, was the ball flying every which way.
Yeah, well, you had some fast breaks come off the defensive boards, and I think it was Yeomans who may have gotten the rebound, kicked it out to another player, it got down the floor in 2 or 3 passes.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for in that type of thing, not necessarily like you said, doing it at 100 miles an hour with the ball, trying to dribble it.
Correct.
Because that's kind of difficult.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If we can get it down the court in 2, 3 passes and get a layup, then we're going to be all right this year.
Yeah, good. Let's talk a little bit about your schedule. You open up Tuesday the 27th.
Yep.
Against Graham. It's a team that normally becomes very competitive when they play Piqua. That's a game here at Piqua High School. It starts at 7:30. All your games start at 7:30 at home games?
If during the week, If we have Saturday games, most Saturday games start around 1:30 to depend on when the JV's finish, but typically around 1:30.
Okay. Then following the very next day, then you are going to go to Butler.
It's a tough schedule.
Yeah.
It's a tough schedule. Going
Obviously.
back to back like that, it's hard to get any prep time, so we got to do a little prepping and preparing beforehand.
Well, you need to get some of that candy and take Mr. Hare out for a trade.
That's correct.
Get him to kind of get the schedule a little bit better for you at the beginning. The only one in there I'm not familiar with is Bell Fountain. They're your third game. That's here at home. Urbana, Tip City. I mean, right back to back, and then you skip a couple of games, and you got Sydney. The first round was Sydney.
Yeah.
What do you know about the GWAC? What's left of it this year?
Gonna be tough again. Tip City is gonna be. They've graduated some players, but they still they're bringing some girls back that are going to pose quite the challenge. Butler has 2 girls right now that I've seen that really stand out, that they're 1 and 2 leading scorers. They'll be a real test for us. Graham last year was a game, I think, looking at the film, was a game I think we could have won if we would have boxed out and kind of done some small things correctly. Hopefully we can start the year off with a win, and then we'll build into that Butler game and give them all that we have.
Well, last year, the first game for Pickwick girls was at Fairlawn, and you end up winning that ball game 50-48.
Yeah.
Which was a nice start for the season.
Absolutely.
Because normally it's 1 or 2, 3 losses in a row before they pick up a win.
Yeah.
So what are you looking at? Talk to us a little bit about who your starting 5 are, if you know that at this point, and how they complement your team.
Right now, the starting 5 is still in flux.
Okay.
We have another scrimmage tonight. We'd like to hopefully pin that down a little bit.
Where do you go tonight to scrimmage?
We go to Lehman.
Lehman.
Yep. We were. This was one that we had scheduled, and then with the weather, we got rescheduled. So.
Yep.
It may be for the first 3-4 games, we may be playing different people in different spots, and we'll find out maybe game 5 who's going to exactly play where and start where. But I was just talking with my assistant coach. The reason I was running a little late with you, we were looking at some film, and there was a spot that we saw that we might be able to fill somebody in, and that's just where we're going to have to learn and see what we can do.
Is there anybody right now on your roster that you could consider your go-to person?
I would say right now probably Kelsey Bachman and Ty Yeomans. Bachman's obviously a senior for us, so we're counting on her a lot. And
Good
Yeomans,
background there.
Yes, a lot of good basketball history there.
Yeah.
And then Yeomans, she's obviously, like we talked about, one of our taller players, and she's aggressive. We just need her to finish near the rim and continue to be aggressive. What
do you think about? You talking about maybe getting up to the 10-win area this year? Is that a legitimate goal?
Absolutely. I mean, ideally, we have the talent to win and compete for the GWAC North. GWAC North is, every school is pretty much the same. Tip City's been doing it for a long time, and they have a lot of skill. Troy's going to have some girls coming back that they probably will be pretty young, like we are, with some freshmen coming up that have a lot of skill. Sydney's been down. I expect them to bounce back, and Greenville's always a tough game, but I have no doubt that we can compete for the GWAC North, but we got to start with that 28th on Butler and see what we can do.
Have you had any other scrimmages besides the ones you had, the three-way the other night, and then the one with Lehman tonight? Have you had any others? Yeah,
we went to Coldwater, and we struggled with Coldwater. They had some size on us that posed some challenges for us. And then we went to West Milton this past Saturday, and we didn't get to spend as much time as I would have liked there. We only got 3 quarters. Normally in a scrimmage you get 6 quarters, especially when you have these tri or quad scrimmages. And I don't know if it was worth our time, but I don't know how much better we got with that one, but we definitely learned some things. We saw some things.
Okay. What are you doing preparation-wise throughout the season? We talked about weightlifting before. What are you doing besides getting on the floor and shooting baskets to prepare for your girls for upcoming games?
A lot of skill development. A lot of skill development and running our offense. We got to get very efficient. We've thrown a lot of different offenses at them here this last 2 weeks, and we got to get efficient with it and just if we can drill our skills and be good at our skills, it's going to make the offense work.
Yeah, if you know how to do the 3 basics, dribbling, passing, and shooting.
Correct.
You put those 3 things together. I can remember Tom Redding down at Tip City, whenever his girls hit the floor, they did not make mistakes in those 3 areas.
That's what we need to be very crisp in those 3 areas. If right now we're struggling with some passes, hitting some open people, but we're working on it. Like I said, we'll continue to work on it. It'll be a process.
I didn't see this so much the other night in the scrimmage, but I've noticed over the years that the girls have the ability to travel before they dribble. Yep. And I don't know why that is that they do that, unless they got just faster feet, their brain works faster than the guys do, or whatever it is. But there's more traveling calls in a girls' basketball game than there are in a boys' basketball game.
Yeah.
Any theory on that?
I don't. We had one girl last Saturday that traveled 3 times in a row. It's just repetition. I think setting your feet and going. I think sometimes they get a little excited and they just start to run before they start to dribble, and that's what happens. But I don't know. I can tell you that I've seen on film that there's a lot more fouls called in girls' games, and I just think that's because there's some mismatches that occur where you get a girl that's going to be a little bit faster, and the girl goes to reach and grab it for her rather than move her feet.
Yeah.
And that's why we get more fouls.
Moving your feet.
That's correct.
Typical, especially on defense. Not
Yes.
necessarily on offense when you're trying to dribble at the same time, but you got to make sure you're moving your feet on defense. The teams in the past have not scored a lot of points. Do you have an objective in a game on how many points you feel as though you need to score if you're going to come out on top?
That's funny you mentioned that. Last night we talked about it. We got to get to at least 42. We feel like to win some games, which means we got to hold a lot of teams below what they've been scoring. But I think with some of the different defenses we're going to throw at people, we should be able to hold some people down below 40. And I don't yet know where we're going to get 42 points, but we'll figure it out.
All right, John. Anything else you want to talk about with your team? We're going to be doing, for those of you who are watching, we're going to be doing maybe 4 or 5 of these shows throughout the year. We're not going to cover every game every time, but we're going to accumulate the games, maybe 4, 5, 6 games in a row, and then get John and Coach Dolph back together and have some conversation regarding those shows or those games and where he stands in relationship to his objective. But so just so you'll know out there, just kind of watch YouTube, watch wherever this thing's showing up out there, and kind of plan on getting out to the ball games. It's nice to come and watch the girls play. It's not there's some speed involved, but it's not as fast as the boys game. I enjoy watching the girls play basketball more than I do the boys. Don't tell Coach Grasso that. But I go to those games because I get a front row seat in those games.
That's true.
But come on out and watch the girls play. Whenever you find out the schedule, it's on the website for Piqua High School. It'll be in the newspaper, I'm sure. Rob Kaiser does a good job of covering all the girls, so pay attention to what's going on out there. Anything else, John?
I appreciate your time. Come watch us play. It should be exciting year for us, I hope.
Coach, I'm sorry I keep calling you John. I've got to call you Coach. I've just known you too long to call you Coach, but I'm going to call you Coach. We want to thank you for joining us. Again, Lloyd Shoemaker, your host of the Coaches Show, and it's John's, Coach Dolph's show, the girls basketball coach. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.